if you're interested in politics, the best way to learn about politics is to do it. The constant travel across Alberta is a bit much, and I think my car is regretting this. If I wasn't in this job and if my colleagues weren't in their jobs, people wouldn't know what the government was doing and some of the bad things the government is doing. Hello, I'm Naheed Nenshi, leader of Alberta's New Democrats. You know, I have always been interested in politics, even when I was a student, but I never really thought I would run. Before I was the mayor of Calgary, I was a professor. And one of the things I was working on was civic engagement, how and why people get more involved in their communities. And one of the things I realized is that it's not hard to get people to volunteer. You just have to ask them, give them the opportunity to volunteer. But fewer and fewer people are working, volunteering on political campaigns. Fewer and fewer people are running. And so I decided that I would spend the better part of a year trying to convince other people to run for politics. And everyone said no. And eventually enough people said, why don't you do it yourself? That I thought about it and said, well, never thought of myself as a politician. You know, you have to be charismatic and good looking and like children and puppies and making decisions, nothing that I like. But what is preventing me from trying? And so I thought about it and went, can a nerdy, schlumpy professor who doesn't have any money and who's not really well known actually succeed in politics? What would that take? And really, that's how I ended up running. So 15 years ago, I was first elected as mayor of Calgary, and now I've been in politics ever since. Well, you know, I was never involved in partisan politics, and you notice I'm still wearing purple. So I wore purple every day for my political career because purple is not a primary color, it's a secondary color. It's a combination of red and blue. And so the idea behind this was to say, rather than define ourselves by our tribes or our ideology, let's define ourselves by our common humanity. And so it took a lot for me to get into partisan politics. I never belonged really to a political party until I ran for the leadership of the Alberta New Democrats. But what I realized was that the Alberta New Democrats are a big tent. They include people of lots of different political perspectives, all of whom are united with some common ethics, some common values about the dignity of every human being and trying to make Alberta a better place for everyone. So I found a home for myself in partisan politics. Well, this is a very interesting job. It's not what I expected because when I was mayor, you know, the job is basically to run the city and fix things. So if people have a problem, you try and solve it. In this job, you're in opposition, so you don't really have any power to fix things. Your job is to hold the government to account. But also, in some ways, and it's kind of weird, because there are backwards incentives. And one of the incentives is maybe you don't want things to be fixed because you want to show that the government broke it. But my perception has always been, let's try and make it better. The interesting thing, though, is the provincial government that we're dealing with on the other side of the aisle now has no interest in making things better. They haven't passed a single amendment that we have proposed to legislation. They haven't passed a single private member's bill, even the really common sense one that says, if you tip at a store or a restaurant, then the employee you're tipping should get the tips. They wouldn't even pass that. And so we have a government that really is impervious to us trying to make things better. So a huge part of my job is just to convince Albertans we need a better government. So I work all over the province. I live in Calgary, but I spend a lot of time in Edmonton. So while the legislature is in session, which is only about 16 weeks a year, then I'm usually drive up to Edmonton on Mondays. I drive home to Calgary on Thursdays. And because I don't sit in the legislature, I'm not yet a member of the Legislative Assembly, I watch it on TV. But I'm here physically at the legislature. And I start out in the morning. We have a morning meeting every day talking about what the issues are of the day. Then we prepare for question period. Question period happens at 1:30 in the afternoon, and I've got a few meetings in that. I try to squeeze in community events in Edmonton before that, and then typically I'll have evening events. While my colleagues are still in the legislature, I'll be out at a community event, meeting more people in Edmonton, particularly in Edmonton, Strathcona. On days when the legislature is not in session, I could find myself in Calgary, in Edmonton, anywhere in the province, typically meeting community people. So I might be speaking one day with stakeholders in the energy industry about things that they need. I might be going to a massive Nagar Kirtan religious procession with the Punjabi community with 100,000 people. It's pretty much 7 days a week. And as we're filming this, it's just before the Victoria Day long weekend. And I'm super excited because I get a half day off on Saturday, and that'll be my long weekend. Two things I like about my work. I like the ability to be out all over the province at great community events, meeting terrific people. And I like the ability to really hold the government to account, because if I wasn't in this job and if my colleagues weren't in their jobs, people wouldn't know what the government was doing and some of the bad things the government is doing. Well, I'd like to be the premier rather than the leader of the opposition party. I really loved being a mayor, because that's not, you are a politician, but you're also running the city. The job I'm in right now is 100% politics. It's just about convincing people that we need a better government. And I wasn't sure that's what I wanted to do, because I like to run things, I like to fix things. But I've been in this role for almost a year now, and I found it so great to speak with Albertans about what they want and about their wishes and dreams and desires. So it's really hard to regret it. Though I will tell you, the constant travel across Alberta is a bit much, and I think my car is regretting this. My favorite moment at work is when I meet Albertans who really are willing to open up to me and tell me the stories of their lives. Tell me about their hopes and their dreams, but also their fears and their frustrations. And that is really the very best part of the whole thing. I was at the Edmonton airport yesterday, and there were two people. I thought they were together, but they were not. They just were two strangers sitting together. And both of them saw me, and both of them just started telling me about their lives, and what they wished for the province. And they were completely different. One was an older gentleman who had been in the military, who'd voted conservative his whole life. The other was a younger woman who was very excited about the New Democrats. And both of them said, in you, we see hope for the future. And, that was really a big moment for me. And I love those kinds of moments when they happen. If you're interested in politics, the best way to learn about politics is to do it. So volunteer on election campaigns. There's a municipal election coming up this fall. There are 3 by-elections, 2 in Edmonton and 1 in Old Didsbury, Three Hills, coming up this summer. So just find a candidate that you will like and go volunteer in the campaign. Don't be scared of door knocking. It's actually really fun. And you'll get to meet your neighbors, you'll get to meet people with different perspectives, and you'll get to understand if politics is really for you. Well, we are really trying to go out to Albertans and help them understand that we don't have to settle for this government. That if we're concerned about the cost of living, the cost of groceries and auto insurance and utilities, if we're concerned about the quality of healthcare or education, there is a better choice, and better is possible. So I'm really spending my time talking to Albertans, helping them understand that things can be better. So it'll be a very busy summer. You'll see me and my colleagues all over the province. We have these 3 by-elections, hopefully, inshallah, as we Muslims say. Later this summer, I will be an elected member of the Legislative Assembly, and then things will change a little bit. But, our job, again, is just to talk to Albertans, and especially this summer, I'm very worried about all the talk of Alberta separatism. And it's really important for us to help Albertans speak out proudly as Canadians, and we'll keep doing that. So stay tuned. There'll be some fun opportunities to be involved.